Hello guys, welcome week 2. It is Monday. We are going to get started right away on our warm-up, which is going to lead us into finishing our text for today of Dark They Were and Golden-Eyed. And I'm really excited to finish up this story because it's got a really interesting ending. So let's take a look at the warm-up. All you are doing is it says complete the table below to warm up for today's lesson. Read the following statements about space travel in the future and say whether you agree or disagree with each statement. And then you're going to type a short explanation of why you agree or disagree. So your statement about space, the planets, the future. 1. Anyone should be able to visit space, not just astronauts. Do you agree or disagree, and why? We will be living on different planets in the future. Agree or disagree? Why? Some planets have other life forms or aliens. I believe aliens are real. And then your last one, having another planet to live on could solve problems on Earth. Okay, so again, if you're not finished with it, take your time, but I'm going to keep on rolling through the video. You can always pause the video and rewind, okay? So here we go. Your aim for today. Kipsters will be able to read a text closely to understand important plot details that influence the ending of the story. So what is happening throughout the story that is going to affect the ending of our book? And then this is going to come full circle on Friday, and you're going to actually get to kind of write your own ending to this story, which is really interesting and fun. So go ahead and look at the next page for notes. Now this is just, there's not anything super important you need to know for this lesson. What we are doing is annotating the text, and that is it. The reason that is all that we're doing today. One, it's a longer text, and so we need to make sure that that is solely what we are focusing on today. But also, what I see from you guys is that there's not consistent annotating and note-taking as you're reading, which means when you get to the questions, then you have to go all the way back through all of the text. Oh, here's my trusty assistant. You have to go all the way through the text and find your answers. That 1, it takes way too long. 2, it leads to guessing because you don't want to go back through and reread all of it. And we get inaccurate answers, and that's not showing what you're capable of. And I want to make sure that you are annotating all the way through and that you are writing gist statements. Writing those gist statements pretty much answers the comprehension questions at the end, and then you don't have to do so much searching through the text when you get to those questions. Okay, so here's how you annotate with Google Docs. I showed you this last week, so if you need to go back to that video, it's still up there, and you are definitely able to go back to that video and look up how to annotate on Google Docs. If you need a refresher, here it is. So normally we box the characters. With Google Docs, all I want you to do is underline it. If you are doing this on a separate piece of paper, just write down your characters and then next to them, write down things for steal, okay? So your example here is that Amaya went to the beach. We underline and bolded her name so we know our characters. Then you're going to underline text that is evidence. There are boxes for gist statements that you were just going to type right in. Again, if you were doing this on a separate piece of paper, then you need to write that gist statement on the piece of paper. There are also comment boxes. You can see right here what the comment box looks like. All the way up and over past that bold and the underline, there is that circle that has the little box with a cross in it. You will see how I did that. Hopefully that shows up on your Google Doc where I put comments in about Steele. I want you to be writing comments about Steele about our characters. If you have random notes to take as we're writing, like we normally do off to the side when we write a little bit off to the side, add this comment box in and type it directly in there. I can see it. And then when we go to answer comprehension questions, not only today, but throughout the week, because there is one of our lessons that is just straight up asking you about comprehension questions and text evidence, you'll be able to use this and go right back to your text, okay? So let's go on and get to our reading. There are some really cool recordings of this story because it is about aliens and space travel and all that kind of stuff, which is definitely way more interesting and better to listen to than me. So I'm going to read a little bit of this story, and I'm going to model through how we would mark it up and annotate it and take our just statements. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to add the YouTube audio of it, and you can click it and listen to the whole story and annotate as that person is reading, because he is way better at, he's way more interesting in my opinion. And then I'm also going to include, and you'll hear this on Friday because I also included it there, but on what I'm going to attach is there's not a video to watch on this. There is not a video to watch on this story, unfortunately. I will try to find one that does have one for next week, but there is a audio of it, and it's what used to happen, and I explained this again on Friday, but what used to happen before TV and things like that, families would gather around the radio, and they would basically do like a play on the radio. So what you could do, and since we worked with imagery last week, and we closed our eyes and we listened to things and it made us feel like we were actually there, that's what they did. So I'm going to attach that as well. It does not, though, match word for word what our story says because it's like a movie script, right? They change things and they add things in to be more dramatic. But there's like music and there's all this cool stuff in the background, and you feel like you're actually watching the play or the video of it, but you're just listening, which is probably better for some of you anyway. If you're doing this on your phone, you can just plug your headphones in and listen to it. And that'll help you as well. So let's get started. Remember, up at the top, your characters are bolded and underlined. Your evidence is underlined. You need to write just statements where I put the boxes in, and then you need to use that comment function to add your own comments about steel. So, They Were Dark and Golden Eye by Ray Bradbury. Guys, I skipped the intro because we had read that for 5 days last week, okay? So you should all be fresh on where how they arrived on the rocket and all of that kind of stuff and how he didn't want to go into the town, right? So now this is picking up right after our intro from last week. If you want a refresher, again, listen to it on YouTube. And you can go back to your work from last week where you're going to see the intro and then you can just read the whole entire story, okay? All right, so here we go. Their name was Bittering, Harry and his wife Cora, Tim, Laura, and David. So as you see, I underlined it and I bolded their names because those are our characters. As we learn more about them, as we go down, you should be annotating for steel in the comment boxes about what we're learning about them. Okay. They built a small white cottage and ate good breakfast there, but the fear was never gone. It lay with Mr. Bittering and Mrs. Bittering, a third unbidden partner, at every midnight talk, at every dawn awakening. So it's like this fear is like an extra person almost, right? It's just always kind of lingering in the room. I feel like a salt crystal, he said often, in a mountain stream being washed away. We don't belong here. We're Earth people. This is Mars. It was meant for Martians. For heaven's sake, Cora, let's buy tickets for home. So what I want you to see and what I put on the Google Doc is that Dad wants to go home. He thinks that the planet is for Martians, not for them. Okay, so, but she only shook her head. One day the atom bomb will fix Earth. Then we'll be safe here. Safe and insane. Tick-tock, 7 o'clock sang the voice clock. Time to get up. And they did. Something made him check everything each morning. Warm hearth, potted blood geraniums. Precisely as if he expected something to be amiss or something to be different. The morning paper was toast warm from 6 a.m. Earth rocket. He broke its seal and tilted it at his breakfast plate. He forced himself to be convivial. Okay, so as we're looking, what I'm thinking here is that what I'm going to annotate is something made him check everything each morning as if something were to be amiss, okay? So I'm going to annotate that, and that's what you should put underline on your paper as well. That's telling me a little bit about him. So what I would do is I would hit that comment box off to the side, and I would, so if you highlight this and then you hit the comment, it'll underline this just like it did up here for me. And then you can put in a comment down here. So my comment would be, he's expecting change. So he's like really, and what does that tell you about him? Every single morning he's waking up and he's like looking for something to be wrong. That's telling me that he's kind of like, something's not right here. Maybe like a little suspicious, okay? All right, let's keep going. Colonial days all over again, he declared. Why, in another year there'll be 1 million Earthmen on Mars. Big cities, everything. They said we'd fail. Said the Martians would resent our invasion. But we did. Oh, I'm sorry. But did we find any Martians? Not a living soul. Oh, we found the empty cities, but no one in them, right? So again, talking about they moved there, they were supposed to have Martians, they were supposed to like deal with all these Martians and things like that, and they see these cities, but there's the cities that the Martians made, right? But then there's no proof of Martians anywhere. So this is a bit of foreshadowing, guys, that we're going to see toward the end of the story, that they're giving you a little hint. They're dropping these hints, foreshadowing that something is going to happen at the end or connected to the end. A river of wind submerged the house. When the windows ceased rattling, Mr. Bittering swallowed and looked at the children. I don't know, said David. Maybe there's Martians around we don't see. Sometimes nights I think I hear them. I hear the wind. The sand hits my window. I get scared. And I see those towns way up in the mountains where the Martians lived a long time ago. And I think I see things moving around those towns, Papa. And I wonder if those Martians mind us living here. I wonder if they don't do something to us for coming here. So what are we learning about David here? This is where we need to annotate and mark, hit our steal comment on the side. So with David, he's saying, I'm seeing things like, hi, Path. I'm seeing things like, okay, sorry, this happens sometimes. All right. Get up here. She's very excited to be in the classroom today with you guys. She really likes this story. So I get scared. That's telling me a feeling. I'm going to, now on my paper, I'm putting a little heart above that. When we put the comment box on the side for steal, all we have to do is say, David's scared, right? Okay. I see those towns way up in the Martians where the Martians lived. I wonder, so here are his thoughts, and this is what we would put down for T. I wonder if they mind us living here. I wonder if they won't do something to us for coming here. I'm going to put a T above this so you guys see this. And then I'm going to write out a little steal statement on the side like I would if I did that comment box. So again, if you hit the comment box, a little box is going to pop up on the side. And we're going to say, David is scared that Martians will do something to them. And that tells me about David, right? And we might see that later. And that's why it is so important, you guys. We're actually going to see this tomorrow with characterization. That is why it is so important that we are annotating these texts and marking them up. Because if we do this, all we have to do when we're asking questions about David is go right back to this and say, well, I know from the text it said that he was scared. He thought something bad was going to happen. Okay, and we can go right back. All right, let's go to the story. Nonsense, Mr. Bittering looked out the windows. We're clean, decent people. He looked at his children. All dead cities have some kind of ghosts in them. Memories, I mean. So, figurative language. He's comparing the cities to, or the memories to ghosts, okay? He's not saying there's actual, like, ooh, ghosts running around. He's talking about that that there's memories that are left behind. Okay. You see a staircase and wonder what Martians looked like climbing it. You see Martian paintings and wonder what the painter was like. You make a little ghost in your mind, a memory. It's quite natural imagination. He stopped. You haven't been prowling up in those ruins, have you? No, Papa. David looked at his shoes. See that you stay away from them. Pass the jam. Just the same, said little David, I bet something happens. So again, a little bit of foreshadowing here. David saying, something's going to happen. Okay. And I'm going to actually underline that because, again, that's showing me that David is a little suspicious that something's going to happen. So off to the side, I might write, I'm going to write off to the side under that, suspicious, okay? Now, my gist statement I wrote in for you. Mr. Bittering is talking to his family about Mars and how they thought there would be Martians, but there aren't any. His son is not convinced and thinks the Martians are out there, but they can't see them. He thinks something bad is going to happen. Those are the parts that we stopped on. Those are the main important things that are going on that we need to know so far about this story. Okay, let's go on to the next part. Something happened that afternoon. See that foreshadowing about David? Something's going to happen. And then something did happen. Okay, so it gave us a hint. That's what foreshadowing is. Laura stumbled through the settlement crying. She dashed blindly on the porch. Mother, Father, the war, Earth, she sobbed. A radio flash just came. Atom bombs hit New York. All the space rockets blown up. No more rockets to Mars, ever. Oh, Harry! The mother held onto her husband and daughter. Are you sure, Laura? Asked the father quietly. Laura wept. We're stranded on Mars forever and ever. I'm going to underline this because it's giving me clues as to how Laura is reacting, right? Through her speech, it tells me something. And she's crying. If she's crying and she's saying all of this speech, what can I infer? I can infer that she is scared. Or that she is, let's do a better word, concerned. And again, I can hit that box, the comment box off to the side. I can underline this in the Google Doc, and then I can put these words. Okay. Moving on. For a long time, there was only the sound of the wind in the late afternoon. Alone, thought Bittering. Only 1,000 of us here. No way back. No way, no way. Sweat poured from his face and his hands and his body. He was drenched in the hotness of his fear. That is a very important sentence. When he's talking to his daughter, he's acting like, no, there's no, it's okay. And with his wife, he's trying to be kind of brave so it doesn't concern them. But we know in his thoughts or in his heart that there is fear, okay? So I annotated that on my paper by underlining it. He wanted to strike Laura, cry, no, you're lying. The rockets will come back. That's what he wanted to do. Instead, he stroked Laura's head against him and said, the rockets will get through someday. So again, he's trying to be brave, okay? And I'm just going to write that here so I could fill in my comment box. He's trying to be brave. And that tells us something about him, right? If he's not showing this fear in front of his family, he wants to be brave for them, right? He doesn't want them to panic. He doesn't want them to be concerned, okay? He's trying to be the strong rock of the family. In 5 years, maybe, it takes that long to build one. Father, what will we do? Go about our business, of course, raise crops and children. Wait, keep things going until the war ends and the rockets come again. The two boys stepped onto the porch. Children, he said, sitting there looking beyond them. I've something to tell you. We know, they said. So they already know that this happened. He was going to tell them, but the boys already know. So here's our gist, and I want you to fill in some of these words. Laura comes in with news that what happened? Write it down. You do not have to, like, obviously, as you start writing, it's going to move that line, and that's fine. Dad says that it will be fine. They just need to keep going about the other kids already know about the news. So what does Dad tell them that they need to do? They just need to keep going about their, all right. And then the next one is pretty long, so I'm just going to read through. If there's something that you need to stop and annotate, and I might say, oh, that's important, I want you to do that, okay? But I'm not going to stop as much because I want to make sure that we're getting through this and that you have time to listen to the rest of the story. Okay, here we go. Sit back and listen. Bittering wandered into the garden to stand alone in his fear. As long as the rockets had spun a silver web across the sky, he had been able to accept Mars, for he had always told himself, tomorrow if I want I can buy a ticket and go back to Earth. But now the web gone, the rockets lying in jigsaw heaps of molten girder and unsnaked wire. Earth people left to the strangeness of Mars, the cinnamon dust and wine airs, to be baked like gingerbread shapes in Martian summers, put into harvested storage by Martian winters. What would happen to him, the others? This was the moment Mars had waited for. Now it would eat them. To clarify, so what he was talking about was, we know how Mr. Bittering feels about Mars, right? He's really suspicious of it. He's not like 100% sold on it. And the only thing that really kept him going day to day was like being like, okay, this is our right, is knowing that there were rockets. Well, now we know there are no rockets. He doesn't have that option of just hopping in a rocket and flying back to Earth to deal with the war that's going on there, okay? If things got bad on Mars. He's stuck there, okay? And the overall feeling that we keep getting is fear from him, okay? So make sure that you have things annotated in this part of the text that shows all of that. All right, let's keep going. He got on his knees in the flower bed, a spade in his nervous hands, shovel. Now he thought, work and forget. So as long as he can work, he can forget. He glanced up from the garden to the Martian mountains. He thought of the proud old Martian names that had once been on those peaks. Earthmen dropping from the sky had gazed upon hills, rivers, Martian seas, left nameless in spite of names. Once Martians had built cities, named cities, climbed mountains, named mountains, sailed seas, named seas. Mountains melted, seas drained, cities tumbled in. In spite of this, the Earthmen had felt a silent guilt at putting new names to these ancient hills and valleys. Nevertheless, man lives by symbol and label. The names were given. That was all just a very fancy way of saying the Martians had their world on Mars, and these Earthmen come in and they build cities and they change the names, even though there's like old Martian names and all of that kind of thing. So they go in and they make changes, and they feel kind of bad about it, but that's just the way that we do things. Mr. Bittering felt very alone in his garden under the Martian sky, bent here planting earth flowers in a wind soil. Think, keep thinking, different things. Keep your mind free of Earth, the atom war, the lost rockets. He perspired, sweated. He glanced about, no one watching. He removed his tie. Pretty bold, he thought. First your coat off, now your tie. He hung it neatly on a peach tree he had imported as a sapling from Massachusetts. He returned to his philosophy of names and mountains. The Earthmen had changed names. Now there were Hormel Valleys, Roosevelt Seas, Ford Hills, Vanderbilt Plateaus, Rockefeller Rivers on Mars. It wasn't right. The American settlers who had shown wisdom using old Indian prairie names, Wisconsin, Minnesota, Idaho, Ohio, Utah, Milwaukee, Waukegan. The old names, the old meanings. Staring at the mountains wildly, he thought, are you up there? All the dead ones, you Martians? Well, here we are, alone, cut off. Come down, move us out, we're helpless. The wind blew a shower of peach blossoms. He put out his sun-browned hand and gave a small cry. He touched the blossoms, picked them up. He turned them and touched them again and again. Then he shouted for his wife. Cora, these blossoms! She handled them. Do you see? They're different. They've changed. They're not peach blossoms anymore. Look all right to me, she said. They're not. They're wrong. I can't tell how. An extra petal, a leaf, something, the color, the smell. The children ran out in time to see their father hurrying about the garden, pulling up radishes, onions, and carrots from their beds. Cora, come look. They handled the onions, the radishes, the carrots among them. So guys, you should be annotating what is happening right now. This is really important part of the story. What is he noticing in the garden and with the trees and the flowers? Do they look like carrots? Yes. No, she hesitated. I don't know. They're changed. Perhaps. You know they have. Onions but not onions. Carrots but not carrots. Taste the same but different. Smell not like it used to be. He felt his heart pounding and he was afraid. He dug his fingers into the earth. Cora, what's happening? What is this? We've got to get away from this. He ran across the garden. Each tree felt his touch. The roses, they're turning green. As they stood looking at the green roses, and 2 days later, Tim came running. Come see the cow. I was milking her and I saw it. Come on. They stood in the shed and looked at their one cow. It was growing a third horn. And the lawn in front of their house very quietly and slowly was coloring itself like spring violets. Seed from earth, but growing up a soft purple. So they brought this grass from earth. It's green. Now it's changing. We must get away, said Bittering. So again, you should be annotating off to the side. What does Bittering want to do? Is everybody else noticing these changes? Is his wife, or is it mostly just him? We'll eat this stuff and then we'll change. Who knows to what? I can't let it happen. There's only one thing to do. Burn this food. It's not poisoned, but it is subtly, very subtly, a little bit, a very little bit. We mustn't touch it. He looked with dismay at their house. Even the house, the wind's done something to it. The air's burned it. The fog at night. The boards all warped out of shape. It's not an Earthman's house anymore. Oh, your imagination. He put on his coat and tie. I'm going into town. We've got to do something now. I'll be back. Wait, Harry, his wife cried, but he was gone. Okay, so we're going to stop there. Look at your gist. Now I'm just adding some questions, and I want you to put your own gist statement in. So Dad thinks what is happening to their food in the garden. What does he think is happening to that food? Why does he think that? And then Mom doesn't know if it's true and doesn't think that the food is poisoned. If there's other important things that happened in this, think about like how they're feeling. Think about what's going on. What's Dad about to do? What does he want to do? You should be adding this into your gist statement. I'm going to stop this here for the day. I'm going to attach the YouTube video and you are going to read the rest and annotate the rest of the story. There's not too much left. And I do add some questions for future gist statements that you have. So you should go through them and answer all of those. As always, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out. There are very different gist statements that are throughout the story. So make sure that you are getting all of those in and that you turn in your work. I am looking for annotations and gist statements throughout the whole thing, okay? Do not just put one gist statement or do not just stop since I stopped reading. And make sure you turn in your exit ticket. I haven't been getting very many of them. Turn those in for grades. Okay, I will see you tomorrow on Tuesday. Bye, guys.